But we would invite you to keep your cameras on, because it's always nice to see who is here in the room. And talking about which, we would like now to see who is here in the room. And for this, please do take your mobile device that's connected to internet, or just go to the browser that you are using and join me for a short Menti question. So go on menti.com in your browser, either on your mobile or just further on your desktop, any device that has a browser. So just go on menti.com and then join us with the code 855146. So 855146. And then please let us know which city, area, town, village, region, wherever you are, where are you at? So just share with us where you are, so we know what kind of a geography we already have here. And we see that we are coming from Tromsø to Canary Islands. So it seems to be already the north-south bridge has been built, and then Ljubljana, Oulu in Finland, Wexford, Budapest, Leuven, and Madrid are already here. Very nice. Please do feel free to share where you are from. We already have some 9 participants who have shared, so maybe a couple of more would be nice to see where you are from. Luxembourg, of course, and also Sankt With in Belgium. Lovely. Great. Ankara, Turkey, Cyprus. Very nice. So it seems really that we are coming from all sides and corners and directions in Europe. It's lovely to see you all here. Welcome once again. And the second question we would like to ask you is, what describes you best? So what is your background? What is your function, maybe your position? Are you a youth information worker? Are you a youth information network coordinator, whether it's national or regional, it doesn't really matter. Other actor in the youth field, maybe you work in quality assurance, or if none of those fit your description, then just go for the other one. And please also share in the chat, what is it or how you feel and what describes you best. So if you are clicking on other, please go on Zoom chat and share with us what that other means exactly in your case. So we see so far that we have many youth information workers here with us, and also some coordinators, as also people coming from other sides of the youth field. So it's good to know, and we are glad to see you here. Wherever you are coming from, whatever background you have, I'm sure that you are at the right place today, because we'll be learning new things on the quality label for youth information. Lovely, thank you for sharing. And now we would like to remind you also that whatever questions you'll have, we'll have a separate Q&A session later on. So if you can write it down for yourself and keep it until the session, that's fine. If you just burn to share it right away, or if the question is right about the input or the contribution that one of the speakers will have, then just write it in the chat on Zoom, and we'll make sure to ask it if we feel that it's correct time now, or then we'll keep it for the Q&A later. So if you have a question, just put it in the Zoom chat, and we'll see what is the best time to ask it. Otherwise, we'll have a Q&A session. So today we have some very important and very interesting speakers here with us. And first of all, I would like to also invite Natalia Turen, who is from the Youth Department of Council of Europe. It's not by accident that, Natalia, you are here today, because Quality Label has been part of the partnership agreement between ERICA and Council of Europe. So, Natalia, tell us, why does the Council of Europe see the Quality Label as important part to foster youth information? What's behind?
Well, maybe I will start a little bit from history, saying just a few words. What is the Council of Europe? I'm sure that people have some ideas and knowledge about it, but sometimes it is a little bit mixed up with the European Union. It's true that sometimes the committees, the commissions, parliaments have the same more or less titles. So I just wanted to make a little framework, and then come, Evaldas, thank you for the question you have asked, because this is the major theme why we're all here today. So the Council of Europe is an international intergovernmental organization, pan-European, which was created in the aftermath of the Second World War in 1949 in Strasbourg, on the border between Germany and France. Now it has 47 member states with over 820 million people living in all member states. The Council of Europe is the observer at the United Nations. And one should also say that no country has ever joined the European Union without first belonging to the Council of Europe. So why the Council of Europe was created? It's because the aim of the Council of Europe is to achieve a greater unity between its members for the purpose of safeguarding and realizing the ideals and principles which are our common heritage, and facilitating economic and social progress. So the Youth Department where I work, as you mentioned, is part of the Council of Europe structure, and it works on guidelines, programs, and legal instruments to develop coherent and effective youth policies at local, national, and European levels. And youth information and counseling is exactly part of these effective policies at all levels. This is part of our intergovernmental program of activities. This is why cooperation with ERICA, which next year will be already 25 years old, and I hope that we will celebrate this wonderful anniversary together. So youth information and counseling is a very, very important part of the youth services provision, which go for the well-being of young people. And this is why ERICA is such an important partner for the Council of Europe and for the Youth Department.
Great. Thank you, Natalia, for sharing your insight. And we see that youth information most probably is also one of the results of the peace keeping also, and youth work in general. That's why Council of Europe is so proactively supporting all the work that also ERICA and other counterparts in the field are doing. Thank you so much for being here with us, Natalia. And now let's have a look at also the how of youth information quality label, because any service, and particularly in the times of infodemics, as we call it now, we do need to know if the information we are getting is quality one. And most probably this was one of the reasons, and up until under all other aspects that have motivated Council of Europe and ERICA to start thinking and preparing the quality label. So Sif, Vic from the Quality Label Working Group has been working on the creation of the quality label. And Sif, would you like to share with us how the label has been created? What was the background here?
Absolutely. And I have a small presentation that I hope Beatrice will share with you. And I'm a member of the Quality Label Task Force and not the working group, but I will explain a bit more about that. Do you see the presentation now?
Yes, it's just starting, so we'll make sure that it's also in the presenter's mode. Now you can start.
Perfect. So, thank you. As Natalia said, the European Youth Information Quality Label has been developed in the framework of the Council of Europe and ERICA Partnership Agreement in 2019 and 2020. And there's a lot of work behind this label. And we are very, very excited and proud to present it today and to explain a bit about the process behind, because there are many, many people have been involved in this. So based on young people's needs and the principle of the European Youth Information Charter, the label should be an easy to recognize sign for young people to identify information they can trust. The European Youth Information Quality Label will be a visible sign that recognizes the quality of the information and the information provider. And it also tells young people that a certain piece of information is verified, true, and unbiased. The label is designed and implemented for and with young people and linked to a set of quality assessment criteria, mechanisms, and tools. So youth information and counseling providers can receive this recognition for their quality service and the respect of the principles of the European Youth Information Charter. The label is set out to provide wider recognition for quality youth information services and to support young people in finding quality information. Because, as you also said about us, in an era of disinformation, populism, fake news, hate speech, and alternative facts, identifying reliable, complete, and unbiased information has become a real challenge for many young people. And youth information builds on the fact that it is not possible to make sound decisions or to participate in society without being informed about one's options, opportunities, and rights. And in the absence of reliable information, young people can be easily misled and negatively influenced in their life choices, opinion formulation, and the ability to exercise their active citizenship and rights. And apparently now I've been standing still in the room, so the light went off, so I have to do this to get the light on again. So, sorry about that. And so in April 2018, the General Assembly of ERICA approved in Cascais a new European Youth Information Charter and ERICA Strategic Plan for 2018 to 2023. Both documents highlight the challenges faced by young people when it comes to addressing the overload of information and the need of ensuring the quality and visibility of youth information and counseling services. And the strategy went further and underlines the necessity of creating a European Youth Information Quality Label, which is easy to recognize by young people based on their needs and on the principles of the European Youth Information Charter. And in this context, and in the framework of its partnership with the Council of Europe, ERICA proposed to work on the development of a European Youth Information Quality Label designed, as I said, for and with young people. Because ERICA believed that such an initiative cannot be undertaken unilaterally. It had to be a part of a broader development process involving young people and key actors in the European youth sectors. So in 2019, the Quality Label Working Group started working with it. And in 2021, the Quality Label Task Force has been further developing the concept and its application and awarding procedure, which you will hear a lot more about today when Imra speaks about it later. So next slide, I think. Nope, that was no, sorry, we move back to the working group. There, yes. So the work so far. The development of a European Youth Information Quality Label for the youth information sector in Europe was a 2-year process. The working group was established through an open call with a mandate to develop the quality label in the years 2019 and 2020. And this working group consisted of members of the ERICA governing board, representatives from ERICA member organizations, members of the Council of Europe Advisory Council on Youth, youth volunteers, youth information officers, and the Secretariat of ERICA. So a lot of people have been working to develop this. And the group produced remarkable outcomes on the way to establishing the label, including a draft assessment tool and the management plan, and found preliminary answers to the major questions regarding the management and sustainability of the label. So as you see, there's a lot of points here with the work, but the working group produced a desk research report with a collection of existing resources for quality assessment and quality management in youth information. They produced an assessment tool for the awarding of the label based on the principle of the European Youth Information Charter, ERICA's self-assessment quality tool, and other quality assessment resources developed on by national youth information structures identified in the desk research. They also organized a workshop during the ERICA General Assembly where national youth information structures and stakeholders that were present at the General Assembly foresaw possible implementation scenarios, considering different national realities in a wide range of European countries, because even though we are very much alike, we're also very different and have different needs. They organized an open dialogue day with youth information providers across Council of Europe member states and involving different stakeholders of the label that were invited through an open call to express their views and contribute to the process. They also carried out a survey among youth information providers across Europe about the planned structure of the label in order to fine-tune the outcomes, and produced a proposal for the management and sustainability of the label, which describes its intended awarding process in detail, which is very detailed and which Imre will talk more about later, and drew up the terms of reference for a task force managing the label process. So next slide, thanks. So following the first year of developing the framework and the assessment system, 2020 was the year of piloting and fine-tuning. So while the initial plans calculated with the involvement of 3 organizations, in the end, actually 9 organizations expressed their interest and joined the process, divided on the 3 different models that were proposed and that Imre will speak more about also later. But due to the restrictions related to the pandemic, as we all know, not all of them was in the position to fully complete the pilot because certain parts of it, particularly the youth review, would have needed face-to-face contacts or events. But we will hear more from successful pilots later. And at the end of the year, the European Youth Information Quality Label was presented to the public in a webinar on December 1st. The program included the presentation of the label and its development, good practice from pilots, and practical information about application and the awarding procedure. And finally, early this year, a task force for piloting and supervising the implementation of the label was established after an open call. They, or we, I have to say, because I'm a part of the group, have further developed the label and the assessment and awarding process of the label, which has brought us where we are today. So the work of the working group, the task force, the ERICA Secretariat, the pilot organizations, the feedback from different organizations and stakeholders, and the events and activities that we have organized during the last 2.5 years have enabled us to make major steps towards establishing a Europe-wide quality label system for youth information and counseling. This project is creating a great asset for youth information centers in Europe, making reliable and trustworthy information easily recognizable for young people. But it's now that the real work begins in putting the label to work. So to conclude, I would like to thank the Council of Europe for their long-term support. This would never happen without you. And I also would like to credit the members of the Quality Label Working Group and the current Quality Label Task Force. You all did an amazing job. So now, let the fun begin.
Great, Sif. Let the fun begin. And I think this is a good time for a little virtual applause. So either in this way, or you can also go with clicking on the reaction on the Zooms, because it's indeed a very big step. While you were presenting, I remembered myself being in a similar process some 7 years even ago, I think 2014. So I'm glad to see that this is now really becoming body and blood and flesh, so to say. So congratulations on this. And let's see how this works in practice. So Imre, what's the procedure? How one can apply to get the label?
Yeah, indeed, there is a procedure now. So good morning to everyone, and I welcome all these participants as well, and thank the speakers before me for giving such a good background and framework and history of the development of the label, and also why this was developed. And indeed, we are now at the stage that this is reality. The application procedure is open, and I suppose that most of you are here exactly for this reason, that you might apply for the label. So how can this be done? I will wait for my next slide. Please make it full screen if possible. Yeah, so Sif explained very well that what the rationale behind this label is. We indeed want a visible sign that tells young people that a certain piece of information is verified, it's true, it's unbiased, so it doesn't need further verification. It can be used directly, and this way it also marks the reliable source of the information, which is in our case the Youth Information Center. You can see on the screen, and Sif also mentioned that it was a process for and with young people. The label itself is a result of young people's design contest, which was further adapted by a professional design agency. So this is the sign, the label that can be used on the pieces of information by the providers who get this label. But who can get this label? And this is on the next slide, please. Anna, first we have why to apply. What are the benefits of having the label? I left this slide so text heavy on purpose to emphasize that we have identified during the development procedure so many possible advantages, but probably a more authentic source than me will be the pilot partners who will tell about their experience with piloting and successfully getting the label later on. So indeed, this label wants to contribute to the recognition of youth information work, and it helps, of course, the young people to get the trustworthy information, but also the providers to gain recognition, to promote the service further, to become more visible, and so on and so forth. So on the next slide, I will really tell you who can be labeled. So as we developed the label in the framework of the partnership agreement of the Council of Europe and ERICA, the label is available for any youth information service provider in all Council of Europe member states. So this is, I think, a big deal and absolutely an added value to the label that we have a large scope. What are kind of conditions? We can go back for a minute, please. That these organizations have to be public or private, but in any case non-profit organizations. So the label is not available for commercial bodies, or but also trades unions or political parties, for example. And they have to commit to the principles of the European Youth Information Charter. Sif also mentioned this document. Those of you who are ERICA members, they already when joining ERICA, by default, you are a signatory of the European Youth Information Charter. For those who we have seen in the Menti, from the exotic cities that do not, where the youth information providers do not belong to the ERICA network yet, they can or they have to read and commit to the principles of the Charter, which detail basic core principles of how to provide youth information and formalize this affiliation with their signature. And though if you are lucky in the end, and yeah, so it concerns both generalist and specialized specialist youth information services, both online and offline, and providers and those who provide both kind of services. So there is no further distinction among the eligibility of applicants other than these. Okay, now, yes, so now let's see then what are the different structures that the label is targeting, and which organizations fit under which structure. There are different kinds that we call them models. As I mentioned, like the scope is really huge, a whole continent. Very different kinds of youth information providers, very different structures of youth information networks, or the lack of networks as well. So we wanted to come up with a model that that fits all, or one of the models that fits all potential applicants. I will start with the first one, Model 1. Here we have two different options, but Model 1 in general is for organizations in countries that have a well-established coordination. It can be a national or a regional coordination of youth information services. It is, we could call them an umbrella organization. Here we have two subcategories. In the first case, if they already have a youth information quality label in place. As far as our research has gone, it's not the case of a lot of countries, but there are a few in Europe that have their national or regional, depending on the scope of the organization, a quality label for youth information. In this case, they can they become their own category in a way that they have a system already going on with which we do not wish to interfere. But in this case, the task is to harmonize the lists of criteria of the two labels. So the national/regional label, which is already in place, and the European label that they would like to take on board. So in this case, the criteria list of the two labels should be harmonized, and if this is successful, then the organization who is issuing this national or regional quality label will also be entitled to issue the European quality label for their applicants. As you can see, and it will be no different in the other models as well, we aim for the principle of subsidiarity so that the decisions and the awarding of the label can happen the closest to the level which is actually providing the information, but of course via standardized criteria and procedures. So Model 1B, the next the next category in the Model 1 is also, and we are still talking about countries or that have youth information networks, but those who do not have their quality label yet. Probably this is the most numerous category, and this is why there is remarkable interest for the label, because there are youth information coordination structures. Also, majoritarily, they make up the ERICA network as well, but there are not a lot of labels yet. So this is why we hope that this European label is becoming very pertinent. So if you represent a country or an organization directly that has this coordination structure, then the way to go is to establish a commission that would apply the principles of the procedure of the awarding of the label and the principles that should be respected in the procedure. And then this commission will, in the application procedure, test their functioning by examining 3 use information providers in their area of operation, and they will submit this to the task force, and we will examine how they do their job, how is this procedure going on, and if we see that everything is in order, then this commission can become a permanent, and they will be in charge of examining and awarding the label to use information providers in their territory. And we have the model 2 still on in countries where there is no umbrella organization that I said in the model 1, so there is no formalized coordination of the use information network in the territory, or there is no use information network at all, but there are individual use information centers. And they do not have evidently a quality label yet. So in this case, we try to go back to model 1 and push these countries to also apply these principles of subsidiarity and either establish a national quality label, which can be based on the European one even, and then in the same structure they can issue the European label, or they can go the way as model 1B is that, okay, we don't want to have a national quality label, we only want the European, but then we make the commission, the same commission that the coordinating organizations set up in model 1B. And then this commission can take over the labeling rights. If neither of these are feasible, then these use information service providers can apply directly to the ERICA quality label task force. This is typically the case of countries with very few use information centers, and that would also mean that it would be numerically not high numbers of application arriving centrally to the task force. So these are the 3 options. Model 1A, if you have a national quality label in place. Model 1B, if you don't have a national quality label, but you still have the coordination structure for the use information network in the country. And model 2 is if you do not have any of these, typically if you are an individual use information center. So if you have questions so far, please note them for yourself in the Q&A. I will be happy, and also my colleagues will be happy to answer. Right. So then let's see the process now. So now we see the categories, but how does it go? So how to actually apply for this label? There could be a step 0 marked, like as a slowest step, which I did not add to the slide. But if you have any doubts about what I told you so far, do contact the ERICA Secretariat or myself, and we'll be happy to identify the best model for you. And once that is set, then and you receive the application package with the forms to fill in, then the first step will be a self-assessment. So there is a self-assessment form which is based on the principles of the European Use Information Charter. It examines how much the principles of the charter are put into practice in your organization, and what evidence proves that they are actually in place. Then after this, the second step is the youth review. Again, we would not go without involving young people in this procedure as far as awarding the quality label. So we have a youth review where young people, ideally both users and the non-users of the youth information services, assess the products, the pieces of information, but also other information products, printed, online, whatever, from a user perspective. How much do they think that this piece of information or this product is user friendly, if they can trust it, if it answers their questions. There are forms and also guidelines in the application package how to go through this. When we started the development of the label before the COVID pandemic, we went for focus groups, for example. Then during the pilots, we have seen that it was difficult to organize face-to-face events. So there are different options of how to go through this step as well. When this is also done, then we ask you to submit your application documents and the evidence and some feedback on the procedure to the Quality Label Task Force for review. So we have 2 deadlines per year. These are going to be permanent deadlines, the 30th of April and the 31st of October. So every 6 months there is a deadline, and this Quality Label Task Force, who are made up of ERICA members, quality assurance experts, young people who will examine the application package in detail. If it is a language which is not spoken in the task force, we might co-opt someone from the country, from the youth sector also to help us with the evaluation. And we also invite, of course, you, the applicant, to an online meeting of this task force to present a bit your case, to give us the framework for the examination. So when the task force is done with this procedure and assesses your application, then they propose a decision for the ERICA governing board, and that is the last step, that it is the ERICA governing board who decides on the awarding of the label to an applicant. So that is the procedure briefly. And let's move on a bit to the maybe the rest I would do based on your questions. So I would not yet go, or now not go into details about the application procedure of each model, but based on your questions, I will go more into detail, I think, because it would be too much to have all the 3 ways of getting the label examined in this framework. But do not hesitate to ask also concrete questions or concerning details, and I will be happy to show different steps of the application procedure in the Q&A section. So I thank you for your attention. On the slide, you saw a link to the sites of the quality label on the ERICA webpage. I put the link in the chat as well, so you can read more about the label and download a couple of documents there. But we are now here exactly for this reason, that we don't have to read, but we can actually discuss and answer your questions directly. So thank you for your attention, and then I give the word back to our facilitator.
Great. Thank you, Imre, for this overview. It seems to be quite a procedure, and I'm glad to see that young people are standing in the focus of it. So I'm sure that it's also an interesting activity and a very good exercise for youth information services to see themselves where they are standing and what is there that can be improved maybe, or also just to ensure that, okay, we did a good job, so let's get this check now on our service. And one of those services that has already the check sign is Spunout.ie, which is an Irish youth information online service. So, and Jack Deacon has joined us also for the discussion to share his and his organization's experience so far, because that was one of the first pilots in the framework of quality labels. So Jack, what was your story? What was your experience? What were your lessons learned? How it all happened? Tell us.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me here and inviting us to speak on our experience with the pilot. I might just give a quick introduction to what Spunout is. As you said, we're an Irish youth information website, a national organisation here in Ireland. We host fact sheets, articles, videos, podcasts, and then take a lot of our site is taking in young people's own opinions, advice, and lived experiences of the various issues that we cover, anything from, as you know, mental health to doing exams, to sexual health, to everything in between. So that's what Spunout is, and that's what we do. We were invited by our kind of our partners in Youth Work Ireland to take part in the pilot. We have a very close relationship with them, and we were delighted to take part along with a number of other organisations here in Ireland. And I suppose that the first question that I suppose I have on my list here is why we thought it was important to kind of take part. We take our duty, as does everyone here, we take our duty to provide trustworthy information very seriously. We've built over the years quite a process for validating the information that we have on site, as well as going through a process that we call youth proofing. So as well as at least 2 experts looking over each piece of information, we also have young people read and look over the information that we are putting out in order to make sure that it speaks to them and it is covering the information that they want in a way that's understandable and accessible to them. So alongside that, we went through in the last year a complete site redesign. It took us a long time, but we wanted, one of the key parts of that was to talk about or display more on the site the process that our articles go through, so that young people can know when they come onto the site that it's trustworthy and that the information has been vetted, it has been proofed. So when we heard about the Youth Information Quality Label, and to know that tick that we can now display on the site just solidifies that even more, and in such a strong way, because it's not just us coming up with a process, it's a European-wide process and quality checkmark that can say, no, it's quality, it is trustworthy, it's proofed, and we can tell you all about the process that we've gone through to get this checkmark. So that was really the key part for us: the trustworthiness, the quality of the information that's on the site. We hear a lot from experts, especially in the health world, and how they hate Dr. Google, as they call them. So we want to be the opposite of Dr. Google, and the quality information mark, really kind of the quality label, really helps us to show that. So that's kind of why we thought it was important. In terms of kind of the process that we went through, and our advice, I talked to our working group during the week to kind of reflect on the process and kind of think about what advice we might give to other organizations that are hoping to kind of go through the program and the process. And we had lots to say, broadly positive, I will say. We had a really, really positive experience going through the process with our National Commission here in Ireland. It was very, structured. It was taken at a pace that was comfortable with everyone involved in the pilot. And we had great opportunity to kind of feedback and feed into the process as it went through it. I'll just kind of start going through maybe some of the key points or key kind of tips maybe that we kind of came up with. We drew together, the first thing was to draw together a working group within the staff. And what I'd say about that was put together the working group carefully, and make sure that you have people on it who are both on the ground working with young people, but also people that have the power to make decisions or have the knowledge to feed into the process at a high level. It's important to have that mix there. And also to recognize that this process takes time, and especially with smaller organizations, finding those staff. There was some organizations in the pilot that had 2.5 staff. So finding the time and capacity was important to them. And it was really, really key to mark in that time and make sure that this process was given the time that it needs and deserves. We had the opportunity a few years ago to go through a similar process called the National Quality Standards Framework here in Ireland. So it wasn't the first time we were asking for feedback, either from young people or kind of going through a self-evaluation process of our organization. We would recommend that, with subscribing to the Youth Charter, you should be asking for feedback and should be asking for reflection from young people. This process is probably not the ideal first time to be going through that process. Those processes should be somewhat embedded in your organization already before you go to this quality label. If it is the first time, you might be shocked or you might get feedback that you're not expecting. So it's probably a good idea to build in those processes before fully eyeing up the quality label process. But that's not to say that it can't be done. That was just our experience, that we were able to draw on our past feedback, and it wasn't all coming up with brand new procedures and processes to try and get this feedback. That's my kind of point, that we could draw on what we've done before. We found through it that being honest and being truthful to ourselves goes both directions, and that is really, really important going through this process. And being honest doesn't mean saying that you're terrible at everything. Quite the opposite. It's really important to know what your strengths are and to be proud of them, and to be able to demonstrate those going into the process. With a project like this, it's only useful if it's only useful to show you the real areas which you can improve in. And if you're not being honest and saying, oh, maybe we lack in this, where really you're actually okay in it, that will end up masking over the real areas that need improvement or need bringing up. So the more honest you are with your strengths, the more it will show you the real areas that you need to improve in. And we found that really, really key, to kind of be honest. And even in our review session, we were told to bring up marks in certain areas, because we were kind of marking ourselves down a bit, which everyone does. So being honest was a kind of a really key kind of feedback or piece on reflection we realized was really useful to have. What other pieces do I have here? Yes, so we, just regarding the third or the second step in the process, even the youth feedback, we did that online with an online survey, and we transformed the form into kind of a plain English survey for young people. this was during COVID as well, so we could either we did have a Zoom session as well, talking with some of the survey respondents about their results, but the broad report came from the survey. The challenge of finding non-users was an interesting one, as we obviously usually just survey our volunteers or people who are engaged with the website. So finding people who had no experience with Spunout or weren't volunteers with us was an interesting one. What we did was we asked volunteers to share with their friends and peers who they knew had no idea what Spunout was, and asked them to fill in the survey. So there was definitely a smaller number of those in terms of the respondents, but we managed to get some. So that'll be our tip for finding those non-users. And then just the last point, we constantly try to keep up practical examples and ways of demonstrating what our good practice is across all the different areas mentioned in the youth charter. Whether that's showing our validation process, whether it's demonstrating what our active connections are with other organizations in Ireland and across Europe, whether it's showing how we're actively trying to be more inclusive or anti-racist, or include all the various communities in Ireland in a holistic way. All these we try to come up with, we try to keep and maintain examples, concrete examples of how we can prove those, I suppose, or how we're working towards those. So that was very useful going into this, to have that kind of that list to draw from. But definitely one of the most important things we found going through it was those active connections with other organizations. That is really important to the process. The more you have active connections with other organizations, the more it's easier to demonstrate a lot of the charter, including inclusivity, good practice, and just being able to really clearly spell them out, how you work with them throughout the year, what projects you've undertaken with them, however small or however large, just to make sure that you keep a record of those, because it's very difficult to go back and record them. So constantly kind of trying to keep up that list. Those are the main points that I had. I don't know if I missed a question, but hopefully that was somewhat useful.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Jack. Please do also stay for our Q&A if you have some time, because I'm sure that some future applicants might also want to hear something from your experience. But so far, it has been quite some advice you were sharing with us. So thank you for this. Jack was representing organization that could be considered in terms of the models that Imre was presenting as the model 2. So organization that needed to create a national committee for labeling without being a national coordinator. And today, as a second testimony and another pilot that already is enjoying being accredited with the label, is also the Austrian Youth Information Network. So BÖJI and Alexander Prvulovic is here with us today. So that's the model 1 with National Youth Information Coordination structure in the background. So Alexander, nice to have you here. Maybe a couple of words about your organization and what was your story? Why did you join in the process?
Hi, Valdas, and thank you, and greetings to everybody from Austria. I'm glad that I can give you a little bit of an insight of our application process as a Model 1 pilot. So we are the national network of the Austrian Youth Information Centers. So basically, almost 20 years ago, the Austrian Youth Information Centers, which are all independent in the different regions and federal states, kind of decided to join together and form also a structure very similar to ERICA, which enables them to then work together on a national level, but also be able to work on an European or international level, and wherever it is kind of makes sense, and it's better for them as well to do things together, projects, products, and just simply to grow together more and more, which is kind of happening, and which is also kind of our main goal. But then in the last, like in the history, BÖJI, so the national network, also became more and more a contractor. So we work also as a contractor for the youth resort, youth ministry here in Austria mainly, but as well for the European Commission. So carrying out projects like Eurodesk or YouthWiki, but also some national project for the national youth ministry. Yeah, when it comes to the application process, I can really only strengthen and agree on everything Jack said just right now. So we had kind of the same experiences. We also first started in kind of just in getting together the right people for the working group. This was also had to be carefully done because, as I told you, we have kind of, on one side, we are this national network. So we do a lot of things together with our regional youth information centers, but not all of my stuff is kind of involved into this kind of work. So, and then on the other side, we are, as a contractor, we are also carrying out youth information projects, for example, for the youth ministry, and here other stuff is involved. And so we had kind of to have this composition of people who are involved in all kinds of work we are doing, so that yeah, so that we have like all the insight we need first when we carry out projects in the self-evaluation part of it, of the application, and as well also yeah, simply because this is what this was also one of the kind of experiences we had. We maybe didn't think that much about before, but it was definitely one of the bigger discoveries during the pilot process, that there are big differences in the framework conditions in our work, as within the network, where we're really kind of doing together, like youth information work together with the regional youth information offices, the work we want to do. And then there's a big difference to our work as a contractor, yeah, which kind of is not always, cannot, for example, be always 100% independent as you are doing, carrying out a job for someone else. Huh? So this during the application process, but also during the whole label process was very important to us, because it became even more clear what are the differences and how do we handle it, in what way do we handle it, especially our work as a contractor, and how is it kind of how do we still also follow the quality, the principles of the European Youth Information Charter. And at the same time, this was another very important discovery for us, as kind of there was, we have our own quality measures, so since many years now, but there was a kind of like a rediscovery of this important and a unique value of the European Youth Information Charter, founded on the principles. So this was really kind of like, yeah, and really has an added value, and kind of an USP also, and this added value can be a very important added value to the own quality management system, which is maybe focused more on the kind of operational, technical issues, at least here in Austria. Yeah, when it comes to, so this one thing to the working group has the people who were in the working group has to be selected carefully so that nothing is missing, and the people who are there also know what they are self-evaluating, and then as when it comes to the youth review, here it was very we had the same kind of issues like Jack told. So so it was like the one part easier to find young people who know our products, who are using it, who are users. It was a bit more difficult to find non-users. So we went there the same way Jack told. We had like a little bit kind of like positive, like it was positive and made it a little bit easier for us. We also carried out projects which kind of didn't have to do with youth information in the first sense. Like it was not about information product or project, but other kind of projects. So we could also ask these young people to kind of evaluate our youth information products, to review them. But this is definitely not 100% ideal, and we will try to kind of minimize this in the next next review when we have to update our label, because simply of the fact that they are still kind of connected to us, and maybe that's why they didn't you know, kind of review it in a very totally objective way, or you know, like it is not 100% independent then, and so we will try to minimize this as much as possible next years and really find completely non-users who are maybe not even connected through us to other young people. So the biggest advice here is to select the publications for the youth review well and carefully, because you can't let them review everything. Usually, well, we all do a lot of work. We have a lot of publications and products. So here we try to make like a selection of publications with different formats, with different kind of information. Some, you know, some publications are more focused on really also like pure information, if you want. So others are maybe more in the sort of to raise awareness, for example, for topics. So that's a different kind of publication. So we have tried to have a mix here. Then as well, publications we produced as in our work as a network coordinator, and then as well publications of product that we have produced as a contractor. So where we you know, were contracted to carry out something. That was kind of the selection. And then as well, shorter and longer publications, and publications who were you know, only print, but then some only online, and only on social, focused on with a strong focus on social media, for example. So, but that's, to find this composition or selection was quite difficult, because you wanted to have like everything in there, but that you couldn't do everything, because it will be far too long. And then this, you know, the risk will be high that the young people don't review it incomplete, and also, you know, then maybe rush through. The second advice, especially when it comes to the self-evaluation, it's also something Jack told already, is like to really use the award process for honest examination of own work. It's like, this is the only thing, and it makes sense. But it's really kind of easier to say than to really do in the end, because, yeah, simply because it's a self-evaluation. You really have to kind of always to try to ask yourself again, like, okay, was it really that positive as we just are writing it? Here again, it helped that we had, like, you know, that not everybody was involved in anything. So there always could be someone who could kind of question it. This is maybe also a learning for us to find a way for the future to have like someone who can really fulfill this role as a kind of questioning person in the future even better. Who can really then, you know, within this self-evaluation process, you know, kind of ask for evidence or something. But I would say we managed it quite well, to be honest, and again, this is really very much important, and only in that way it can really be a you know, like a good quality measurement system as well to progress further to make things better in the future. Yeah, and because the last advice would be to allow sufficient, which means for mainly plenty of time for the whole application process. Because as I told you, you have to select the publications for the youth review well, to prepare them in a proper way. You have to do the same for the self-evaluation, and then you know, it is, I think it is a very a process which is I would say like as easy as it can be, but still you need also a lot of time for the documentation. So don't forget that there is also this documentation process where you fill in the application papers, and here you need also a sufficient time in order to, you know, don't rush through to have everything in there as it, so that it is kind of that the application can be reviewed as a whole in a good way, but also that you feel, okay, we set everything as it is, didn't rush through, and at the same time also didn't, you know, don't maybe have too much things which you said a couple of times, you know. So it is when it comes to the writing, to documentation, again, you will need some time, and more time than you maybe think in the beginning.
So the time is what we also still have, because the next deadline for applying is end of October. So 31st of October still gives us some good 5 weeks to get this all ready. Alex, thank you so much for sharing your experience and also giving us some tips on how to do it better, or also what to take into account. And now we will open the round of questions. So if you, Alex, still have some time, please bear with us, because I'm sure that some applicants will be also interested to ask you of your experiences and your insights. So as we said, the procedure now for question round is either you put your question in the chat if you have one, or you raise your hand by clicking on the blue button, and then we'll make sure that you can ask your question also just over the mic and video, so we can also have a bit of an interaction. And we have here members of the task force. We have here also people from ERICA Secretariat and Governing Board, and also pilots. So I'm sure that we'll be able to answer your questions. So use the time, use the chance, and this is what we are here for. And we already had a couple of questions from which we would also like to start. And I think maybe Imre, you could be the best addressee for this one. So we have heard so many different steps. We have heard that there might be some complexity in this. So where to start? What is the first step Jana is asking for the ERICA member to start the process? Is it to contact you, Secretariat? Is it to translate the documents, etc.? So could you please give us advice where to start?
Thank you. This is a very relevant question indeed. So how does what are the steps of this application, and from a bit more practical perspective? So yes, the first step is ideally indeed contacting the ERICA Secretariat. We have the Secretariat mailbox for this purpose also published on the website, and we will get back to you, and probably it will be an online meeting just like we are having now, to discuss which model is yours, what your situation is, what your aims are with the label, and then what would be the right way to go. Then if you are not an ERICA member, we will ask you to commit to the European Use Information Charter. and sign it. And then the next step, so we will here now define which application package is for you, which model is yours. And here the first step is different, but in most cases, so in Model 1A, Model 1B, and if we can persuade the Model 2 applicants to go under one of these models, then the first step would be a labeling committee, the establishment of a labeling commission. If you have a national quality label, then you already have this commission, of course. If you don't, then we will ask you to set up a commission like this, who would be then the labeling committee for the label in their territory of operation. In this commission, we advise that it should have minimum 5 people of diverse profiles. They could be youth information workers and managers or directors of a network or youth info organization. These 2 are obligatory to be included in the committee. And there are also, there can be more than 1 person with this profile, of course. And then there are other profiles also that we recommend to include in the commission, such as young people and any other profile which could be relevant in your situation. For example, if you are a generalist youth info provider, you might think of including someone from a specialized service and vice versa. Yeah, so once you have the commission, then you are ready to start the application procedure. And here the first step is the self-assessment form, which I said is based on the principles of the European Youth Information Charter and putting them into practice. This is a self-assessment form, and as both pilots highlighted, it's best to fill it in honestly. It's not a very difficult document, but it examines all the 9 principles of the charter a bit in detail. Here we also request you some evidence that shows that what you answered for a certain question or point is actually like that. This can be, for example, a youth information product of a flyer, anything like that. And I have seen another question about the languages, so I start answering that too. This evidently does not have to be translated. So the self-assessment form is in English, but the evidence that you send with it, it can be in its original form. We of course do not expect anybody to translate several publications for the sake of applying for the label. After that, the next step is the youth review, where I said we have different possibilities to run. It can be focus group, it can be a questionnaire, it can be setting up a youth steering group or a youth panel for the organization and asking for their opinion. You can have workshops or meetings with young people and the like. In any case, we ask you to have a group of young people, ideally both users and non-users of the youth information service. And the group size also depends on the method. So what works best for a focus group might not be the same that works best for a questionnaire, because then we should have a higher numbers to get results that can be evaluated. We of course invite you to keep gender and geographical balance in mind, and also the diversity of the target group, young people with special needs. So like everybody who you target with your youth information service should be represented in this youth panel as well. We will then review some products and answering again the question of the language. So this part, the youth review part, should always in the local language. So in the mother tongue of the young people. What we ask you here is to translate us a summary of the results of the youth review into English. But again, also all the evidence can remain in the original form. So we definitely do not want to create language barriers for this youth review. It should always take place in the local language. And then when you're done with both, so you have a committee, you have the self-assessment form filled in, you have the youth review filled in, and the summary translated to English. Then you can send it all to the task force. We'll ask you to fill in an evaluation form and a feedback form about your experience. And then the rest is up to us. So the task force will examine the application. As I said, we will invite one representative of the applicant to the meeting of the task force to present the application package and maybe answer some specific questions that the group may have. And then the proposed decision will be sent to the ERICA governing board, who is the decision-making body on this. Yeah, so I think that was description of all the steps. If something remains unclear, then yeah, this is the time to ask.
Yeah, so just to make it also clear for and to answer the question that Mika has raised. So and I think it's coming now again. So all of the documents that have been created already for the labeling process, they are available only in English so far, right?
Yes, that was the subject of a discussion in the group, and in the end, we went for English, just like the language which is generally used in international cooperation, and also in the case of our network. But as I said with the youth review, we definitely wanted to not to have, like, to avoid the language barrier, but the submitted documents shall be in English. If there is a really big issue with that, and also with any other questions as well, always contact the ERICA Secretariat. And we will discuss it with you. But yes, the language used now is English. The documents we have are in English, and they are in a Word document format. This was also not only a part of a discussion, but we actually piloted the online forms as well. But the experience there was that it is much easier to assess, and it provides a better overview for the task force, way easier to use the documents if we keep them in this document format. So this is the reason why it is not in an online form where you can submit. It was tried and tested, and then we decided to choose this option.
Mika is also asking, have you described the process in other formats than text? I suppose it's a process of application. Mika, do you mean that it's visualized in some way, or it's a video, or what do you mean by formats other than text? Please go ahead, just unmute yourself and we'll hear you. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Best greetings from Oulu and Finland. Good to nice to hear that the whole process is now ready. And now when I'm listening this, so this has so many steps and phases and levels and things that I have to say that I'm confused. So this is why I'm asking: is there have you described, or do you have some kind of picture of this process, so that which is in some other kind of format than text? That would, and I mean that you showed this picture with 4 steps, I think, but as a picture or in format of, for example, the timeline. This is something that I'm now trying to visualize this whole thing in my head.
To make also the description of the process also based on youth information principles, right? So also comprehensive. Imre, do you have any aids for this?
Yeah, the question is very good, and we should definitely take this on board, because currently we only have a text format, but and this is why I asked you in the beginning to contact us before you start the procedure, because then we would identify which model is yours, and then we do have a detailed, although textual description of all that. So now when I explained you answering the previous question, all the steps that are in the procedure, we do have a detailed description, like guidelines for all that. So it does exist, but currently, yes, only in text format. So this is something that we will definitely take on board with the task force, and we will aim it probably for next year. Also, maybe our partners at the Council of Europe will agree with us to develop some visual aids to explain, because indeed it's a little bit a system that seems a bit complicated at first sight, because it really has to cater for a lot of different realities, but in the end, for one applicant, it's only one model which is relevant, and that is I think reasonable. So thanks for the proposal as well. We will do so.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. So if you would have more questions, just please raise your hand by clicking on the button next to reaction panel. You have it just right to share the screen functionality, so we can see that you'd like to speak. And so far, I don't see any questions. You can also do it in the chat. Yeah. We see a lot of encouragement for visualizing this. Maybe also if it has so many different levels, maybe we can go for, are you test, quiz test, like, are you this organization? Yes, no, then go there. So I'm sure that there are many different playful ways and visual options how to do it. Anything else beside of languages and the process itself, something you would like to know, maybe also from Jack or Alex on their experiences? Mika, go ahead.
Yeah, another thing, maybe I missed this. This is a general question about the label. So is it, if you once get it, so do you have it rest of your life, or how long the organization ever exists?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you have to renew it, or what's the plan for that?
Maybe Sif, if you are here, maybe you'd like to answer this one.
Yes, I can. I'm trying to remember now. I'm sure that no, you will not keep the label for the rest of the existence of the organization. But I was trying to remember how many years we said before you had to sort of 3 years, right, Imre? Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's that was a discussion in all the different groups. But you have it for 3 years, and then you have to renew it.
And renewing works in the same process, or is there another one?
No, I think Imre could also explain that, but it should be a simpler process, because then you've already gone through the whole, all the different steps. So it will definitely be simpler.
Imre, maybe you would like to add?
That was correct. So it is for 3 years, with the mention that it can be adapted in certain situations. For example, if it's model 1A, which is the situation when you have the national quality label, and for example, that national quality label is granted for 5 years, then we can adapt, for example, that okay, then a label can go with the same cycles, so that we do not give a lot of extra burden for the existing system, but by default it is 3 years indeed. And yes, the renewal procedure will be simpler than the application procedure. Yes.
Great, thank you. Jack, did you want to add something?
I just wanted to add that with maybe the models and because it has to adapt to lots of different situations, it does seem maybe slightly confusing when it's out of context, but I would agree with Imre that once you kind of get the ball rolling and narrow down, you know, very quickly you can narrow down the steps of exactly what steps your organization needs to take, and the process becomes much clearer and it's not a complicated process when you lay out the steps in front of you. I think Alexander would probably agree as well, but it's not a complex, it feels complex now because it has to serve lots of different situations, but once your own organization steps are laid out, it's very straightforward in our experience anyway.
Yeah, I agree on that. And regarding the renewing, yeah, we will definitely renew it all 3 years and kind of just figuring out how to include it into our own quality assurance system and measures. So it will become like a steady quality assurance measure for us. So that all 3 years we renew it, and in the meantime we will carry out our own national ones.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing your insights. If you would have any other question, here it comes from Stephanie. Are there here today organizations that already have a national level? Stephanie, maybe you'd like to explain a bit. Label, yes. That's what I was also trying to understand. Yeah, so Alex, I think you already have a national label, right? No?
Not in that sense.
Okay.
Like the European Quality Information Label. It's more like a brand sign.
Okay. Maybe somebody else here who's participating can share it either in the chat or I suppose Stephanie is just interested to see it also how it can be done on the national scale. But you don't even need to do that. You can just take what's already there, what's prepared now after all this process, and just start with that and have already the European visibility, which is for sure even stronger. And then maybe also try to build around this your national label. Great, thank you. Anything else you'd like to know about the label, quality label for youth information? You still have a couple of minutes of time to either write your question in the chat or also raise your hand and unmute your mic and just bring it here in the round. Yes, we see one hand here. Just, yeah, Mika.
I'm wondering, do you have a map or some kind of, again, a visual thing, where you can see where actually, or is there a plan where you can see who or which organizations have or are in a process for applying this label?
So is it also a bit connected with visibility to the outside of the label itself, or also like networking between those who have the label?
I would say both.
Okay, who wants to have a say on this? Sif, Imre?
I can, if Sif is fine with that. It is definitely our plan to have it visible on our website who have the quality label. Yes, absolutely. But this is the first open round of applications following the pilots. So this is in the making, but by the time that your procedure will be completed, we will also do our best to make it visible.
Great. Mika, is it following on this or something else?
A new question.
Okay, so maybe then let me get Stephanie first because she was already waiting, and then we'll come back to you. Stephanie, would you like to introduce yourself shortly?
Yeah, do you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, hi. About that of the mapping of the label, in Luxembourg, we already have a national label. And what we have done so far is that we put in our website which organization hold the label, the youth information label. So the young people know which structures are in the country that they can go to ask a question. But those, they are labeled, they have a specific icon label. So that is the difference between those organizations that provide information and those who are qualified, or they hold the label. So I think that could be for the future a nice thing to do, maybe in your countries, if you're planning to make more visible the label, because label is not only for just to hold the icon, the logo, but also to let others that you have it, but that is a network, that is something that you perhaps develop all together, and that makes it reliable as well. I don't know what is the strategy of every single country, but we work like that. So the label is held by the Youth Information Network, so makes the youngsters understand that they can go to that organization in the north or in the south, and they can receive the same kind of quality information, and that all of that is being controlled by the same kind of organization, which is us. So maybe just a hint of what could be done in the future. And that was kind of the question I have previously, to know if someone of you have experience of putting in place a new label or a complementary label or something like that, because we already have like a logo. So if we already have a logo or icon, how can you just give or grant this label to the organization that already hold the national level, and not confuse the young people? Because specifically about talking about this mapping thing, so we can just say just kind of the information here is okay or is trustable, but it was more about the visual, that the young people don't get confused. But unfortunately, there are none organization having the same structure we have. I guess France, they will have this if they want to apply the same kind of situation. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie, for sharing your idea. I suppose that we will take this as a note, and then also consider in the future planning and development of the label, and also maybe those who feel that you also would have the same idea or maybe some experience to share, please do get back to Stephanie. Mika, you were still waiting in the queue for a question.
Yes, thanks, Evaldas. I would like to ask Jack if you have got any feedback or any kind of reactions from young people after you got the label, and yeah, is there any difference if you for example, compare now when you have the label and before? How have young people reacted on this?
So as I mentioned before at the start there, we just went through a big site redesign. So it's still kind of, we haven't placed it on the actual site yet, unfortunately, just as a slow with developers. We only launched the website last month, so we're still working through the bugs. But with our action panel, with our youth action panel, there's 150 of them who know, they're extremely positive reaction to it. There's definitely some, it's a new label, so kind of there's some storytelling there around what it means and what it is, and some figuring out about how best to kind of advertise that, I suppose, or how best to tell that story in a brief way. But very positive reaction. They know all about our validation processes and how, and they're big fans of us, obviously. So they were just really congratulatory and kind of really excited that there was something, really established, and really that the mark was kind of very official, that they could say, oh no, like the organization that we're part of is high quality, and they can kind of, it's another thing to stand behind. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Anything else to ask? We still have a couple of minutes. Use the time for it. For the quality label for youth information, if there is something you'd like to ask before you go with your applications. Jana has a comment. Would you like to also speak up? Great, thanks.
Oh, thank you. And I want to say something about the steps question. This has been discussed in a ERICA board, and also with our board members in Quality Task Force. So I think what we could do is that we put all this information together, how the example our colleagues from France has solved this question about the national youth information label and the quality label of ERICA and for youth information services. So we can share these kind of good practices and ideas, because we have already discussed some of the cases here, which we already know. So it's can be solved, and so I think, Imre, if we can put this in our mind and maybe discuss it in the next board meeting, and share afterwards this good practices. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Jana. So last questions, comments, ideas, use the chance to share them now. If not, we'll be slowly coming to an end of today's online info session. So just a reminder for you that one of the next steps is also to save the date and not to miss the deadline, which is the 31st of October this year. There is a plan, so to say, to have this as a regular deadline every year. So every year you'll have the chance to apply for the quality label twice. So once is the end of April, 30th of April, and then in the autumn on the 31st of October. So if you miss this deadline now in October, there will be one still in April. But of course, the sooner you get it, the more visibility you'll get, and maybe also you'll be the first ones, the pioneers in the quality label. So use the chance and apply until the 31st of October. To do this, please do contact ERICA's secretariat. We'll share the contacts in the chat, and you also have already received the link, so you can follow this one too and find more information on application process. But first of all, just reach out to the secretariat so it's clear which of the ways and which of the options is best for you. And in the chat, you'll now see the email address of secretariat@erica.org. So that's the best way to know which of the modal is best for you, and then to know also what are the concrete steps that you need to take to successfully accomplish the process of labeling. So I would like to thank you for joining in today and for all your questions and inputs and great ideas you have shared with us. So I wish you also good luck in your application procedure. And I hope that next time we meet here, we'll have even more pilots, and not pilots anymore, but already some labels on the map full of those. So go ahead and enjoy this possibility to get even more quality in your work. So thank you for joining. Have a nice afternoon. Take care and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Valdas. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.